Hello, everyone. Today is January 22nd, 2021. And as the games unfold in the United States regarding the election fraud and what happened with the inauguration, the pre-recorded inauguration ceremonies, people are starting to wake up and they're starting to ask questions. And people who I know weren't awake now are saying, well, something isn't adding up. And this is the great awakening that is starting to unfold as more people are becoming curious as to what happened. And as the awakening unfolds, what is going to happen is we're going to see the best in people and we're going to see the worst in people, as some people try to maintain the controls that they've used in the past to be able to keep the illusion alive. And I'm going to talk about it more on the personal level of how the controls work. And that's what I'm going to call today's episode. Control is the unspoken addiction. And when I talk about the unspoken addiction, why control is so important. When you look at trying to elevate your consciousness, if you are to the point that you're aware enough to control other people, you can't elevate further because you're so busy suppressing. You're looking down as you keep everybody else controlled. The people who are trying to rise up might not be aware that you're controlling behind the scenes. And I'm not saying everybody here is a controller. Some are the controllers and some are the controllees. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm sharing how control works, why it doesn't help us in the long run as a species, and maybe provide some information on what to do about it if you're either being controlled or you have a control problem of controlling others. So control, the unspoken addiction. When we look at the people around us, a lot of people, since we got back in January and we started getting back into more of a routine, and you start touching base with people, a theme started to emerge over the holidays. And what that theme was that people would be talking to different family members. And all of a sudden the family members are trying to control. And in most of the examples, what they would do is withhold love. And this is important because some people think they're this all loving, entity, and they're not. They're really controlling. What people were saying to me is family members would come over and they would stay outside the door on Christmas, whether Christmas Day or whatever, and they would have their masks on and say, no, we're going to social distance and meet this way. But then the next day they go to another relative's house and those same relatives are in the house having a good time as they left these relatives in the garage. So look at how some people control and they withhold love to get you back in line. And this is not the nice side of the human condition, but this is unfortunately how a lot of people operate. I have other people tell me that somebody would call a relative to try to get that person back in line. What's wrong with your cousin? What's wrong with your sister? What's wrong with, and try to manipulate this way. I've had people show me they received an email from somebody saying, you've done such a great job turning your life around and the way you raised your kids. And I'm glad you're okay now, but you really need to start discussing how you're handling all this information about the elections. And if you don't like this, you can block me. That's the narcissistic personality type, to sit there and say, you've done such a great job with raising your children. Who asked this person's opinion about anything? All of these little games are designed to bring on shame, bring on guilt of the person they're trying to play these games against. I've experienced this firsthand for a number of years, and I figured this out quite a few years ago. I can't remember what year I wrote this blog. I think it's a couple years old anyways, that I wrote a blog about control and how it takes apart our society. So what happens when you're controlling, the society can't elevate in consciousness because they're stuck at that level of the controller. I've seen parents do this to the children. I've seen parents say, that you can't come over at Christmas because my granddaughter's here. Just things like, then why is it okay for one person to come over but not another person? Oh, because you're speaking the truth. You're going to be punished for that. So these are the head games that people play. And as we're trying to jump into the fifth dimension, we want to go to unconditional love. We want to go to compassion and empathy. We have to understand how this game plays out. And I'm going to jump a little bit here and go into what's happening with the US election. Donald Trump passed a lot of very good laws that were good for the people. Biden, supposedly the first day, has undone all of them. He's canceled the pipeline. He's gone and canceled the fracking that's happening. I can't remember what state it's in. He's now let men back in women's sports. I believe he's reversed the transgender bathroom policy, letting men into girls' bathrooms. These sick fucks, you think they're not pedophiles? What's their first pizza party going to be? You think none of this happened? You've got Barack Obama, you've got Biden, you got Biden's laptop. Look at all the controls, even in the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, when they talk about him helping Jeff Epstein adopt a couple boys, and we know what that's all about. But they couldn't find there was any fraud in the voting machines when it was all over the alternative news. I won't say it's all over the news, but all over the alternative news. This is the control mechanisms that need to be identified and stop supporting them and fall away. So everybody that I spoke to who had somebody try pull a fast one or withhold love, it was mostly the women doing it. And I don't even know what to say about that, but it's the women doing it. So when women think that they're this all loving force because they've got a vagina, they really need to start looking at what's in their heart and how they're treating the people around them. And I've said this many times, you can love someone, you can control someone, you can love to control someone, but you can't have both. And what my advice has been, and I did kind of give advice in some of these situations, is let these people go. Who says you have to stay close with a family who does nothing but want to control you or sabotage you or manipulate you so that they have some sort of sense of power over you? Let them go. And that might mean grief comes up because you don't want to let your family go, but it doesn't mean it's forever. Let it go without attachment to outcome. Maybe they'll have the epiphany next and then come back and say, I didn't realize all this was happening. Because a lot of people are really attached to their financial worth. Their worth is their net worth instead of understanding their worth as a person, as a human being. And because they're attached with their net worth, they have no idea. They're connected maybe emotionally. I shouldn't say they have no idea. They're not connected emotionally. They don't have their priorities set properly. They're esteeming the wrong way. They're esteeming through the things they own and not who they are or how they feel or what love feels like. So it might take a bit of time for some of these people to break through this. And as more people are waking up, I'm all about you standing in your power and you stand in your truth. Because as more people are waking up, those who have a control mindset, they're waking up too. So there was a doctor on Twitter, I can't remember her name, and even if I did, I don't know if I would say it. She posted about a week ago that the mental health industry is making great breakthroughs because they're becoming woke, and in a couple more years' time, they're going to have all this figured out. And I just about got my keyboard clicking, and I thought, Sandy, go away, stop, just go, don't do it. And I thought to myself, you don't have any of the mental health stuff figured out, but in 2 years' time, we all have to wait for you to catch up in 2 years' time so you can be in charge and we can ask you to fix us. This is the mentality of the narcissist. So it doesn't mean they're trying to hurt anybody, but they honestly think they are entitled to be in charge of what? Your mindset, your heart set. These are the same people that came up with the 6 genders, 58 sexual identities, and that 3-year-olds are capable of deciding whether they want to have a sex change. So it's so important that we empower ourselves to stand into what we know is true, to figure out how to discern what is true for ourselves and not let other people control us and not control other people. And that requires letting go of the outcome. And I define control as if you're trying to dictate an outcome or the behavior of another person or the thoughts or the emotion of another person. That's what I kind of a loose definition of what control is, in my opinion. And it seems funny that the more that are standing up, we're going to see, as I said, the best come out in people, and we're going to see the underhanded side of what's coming out with people. Again, the shame games. You're just like your mother, father, brother, sister, whoever it is, right? Those little head games that people play. And I'm not going to, sometimes it helps to find a way to send it back, not send it back to them, but answer it in such a way that they know that you're not taking on their judgment. So, so I'm going to talk a bit more about control. So this is part of the blog that I wrote a few years ago. By viewing change as an incredible opportunity for growth, it doesn't have to hold anyone back. So it's not about holding anybody accountable or punishing anybody. It's just about choosing to stay out of that control. Goal setting has a different tone than controlling. Setting goals is inspired by a desire for a great outcome. So start looking at what you want to do for yourself. If other people are controlling you, maybe you set boundaries and step away from them a little bit and until they either figure it out, or maybe that relationship has to end. So setting goals for yourself based on what you want to happen so you can stay on your own path. And if others attempt to hold you back, gently bring up the topic of control. Letting go of control is liberating for everyone. If you're unsure whether control plays a role in your life, ask yourself the following questions. And when you ask yourself these questions, you can ask anybody these questions. If you weren't controlling, what would you be doing differently right now? If you weren't controlling, what would you do that you aren't letting yourself do right now? If you weren't controlling, where would you go? What would you do? Who would you hang out with? If you were controlling, what would you want to experience in life? If you weren't controlling, what type of people would you surround yourself with? If you weren't worried about being in control? If you were controlling, are you holding yourself back in self-denial because you have to follow a program like a religious program or an education program, a cultural program? Are you holding yourself back so you want to hold everybody else back because you really don't want to be in the controlled environment that you're in? Would you be setting boundaries if you weren't in control? Would you be letting others set boundaries with you? Isn't that a more loving relationship when you both come in and you're both respectful of each other and you want a great relationship, but you realize that it involves respecting other people's needs and wants in an appropriate way while respecting your own? If you weren't controlling, how would you think, feel, speak, and behave differently than you do now if you were in the need to be in control? So this is so important because this COVID lockdown, who gets to control what stores you go shopping in? Do we think we have some control freaks in charge? When I say in charge, they're in the positions that what they say goes only because other people follow the orders. If he wasn't in control or she wasn't in control, would they be telling you you can't shop at certain stores, but you can shop at Walmart and Costco? I tried to pick up some bird seed and some treats yesterday or a couple days ago, and the insanity at the pet store. And as I drove around the corner, you see Walmart parking lots packed. So who controls who has the right to earn an income? Who controls who has the right to have their own livelihood? Who controls it? So a lot of people have made reference, and I myself have made reference to looking at all the COVID controls. Isn't it like domestic violence? They control how much money you get, who you get to spend your time with, how much time you get to spend with them, and what time you need to be home. We live in an abusive society, and while all of this is unpacking and falling down, and it's falling down, there's no doubt about it, we all get to decide where we are in the control game. I one time in a situation in my life was put in a position of control where I had to be the parent for somebody, and it was supposed to last a month, and it lasted for a year and a half. And the most disgusting feeling it's one of the most disgusting feelings I've ever had, was having to be in control of somebody and telling them, and maybe they were crossing a boundary, or maybe they should look at something a little differently, because I became that person's mother, their parent. And it was disgusting because that was not what I was supposed to be. So if you ever want to be in control, try being in control of somebody that you don't want to be in control of. It's the grossest feeling you'll ever get. But this is what was prescribed by somebody for me to do. I didn't understand what was going on at the time. And when you're in control of somebody else, if you're making decisions that are not in their best interest, how does that leave you feeling? Does that give you a false sense of power? Never gave me any of that. I'm nobody's babysitter. So really have a good look at how you're controlling, if you are controlling right now, or someone's controlling you. If they hurt your feelings and it feels like you've just been stabbed in the heart, they're using love, they're withholding love against you to get you back in line, because human beings are decent, loving, caring people. We're meant to be there for each other. We're meant to connect. So they know how to hurt you. And what I do find is pretty much every family has one or two people who are awake and the rest of them are not. And the ones who are not awake, if they've got a financial stake that they want everything to stay the same, which is funny, because now that Trump is out, nothing else was stopping that, the Great Awakening, which was happening. So now they're going to the default of what I'm going to say the dark energies want, which is the Great Reset. And if anybody's researched the Great Reset, one of their favorite sayings is, by the time they're done, you will own nothing and you will be happy. So this is a big example of careful what you wish for, because before you had Trump to be your buffer, and now he's gone. You got to do it on your own. So what's that going to look like? Are you going to stand up to the controlling people in your life? Are you going to set a boundary lovingly? Are you going to pull away if you need to? So I just, this isn't going to be a long video today, but I'm just noticing, as the more people I'm talking to and reconnecting with this month, that controlled over Christmas holidays especially was a big issue. And those family members they don't want you waking up. So then this becomes an intention now. If they're going out and controlling you, they have to at some level know that that's what they're doing. They're withholding love. And they're going to have their own dark night of the soul. They're going to have their own epiphanies, and they're going to have to wake up. But when people are telling me that somebody's calling their cousin their cousin to say, what's wrong with your cousin? This is all the manipulations that abuse uses. These are the passive aggressive, sneaky little games because you haven't got the guts or you don't have the vocabulary to stand up and ask the person who you're talking to what you want to know. And I heard that from more than one person. So you run to somebody else. I've heard even in my coaching practice before, a mother wants a daughter back under her control and listening to her. So she goes to the new husband's sister to complain about her own daughter to get the husband's sister pissed off at her, to get the husband to get her back in line so mommy can be in charge. The Great Awakening means, and I've said this before, we're going to grow up emotionally, spiritually, sexually, and mentally. We're going to grow up. But to grow up, these games have to stop. And for the games to stop, you have to see they're being played. And so this is what I wanted to share today about understanding the control. It's an addiction for some people, but it doesn't mean that it's acceptable. And when I say it's not acceptable, it is up to us to change it. It is up to us to stand in our boundary. And a lot of what I notice, a lot of the people I work with underestimate themselves. They're not bullies. A lot of people that are drawn to me are people who genuinely care and want to make a difference in the world, but they've got either people pushing against them or they've been hurt in some way. So their esteem, they don't feel as worthy or as deserving as other people. Those are the people who are shining right now. And those are going to be the ones who bring us into the fifth dimensional energy of more love, more compassion, more kindness, more collaboration. And what they're going to find is the people, they're going to see who in the past or in the present is controlling them to keep them down so that nothing changes, so we can stay in the physical reality of money, sex, and power, right? And so I just see all that changing, and people might need a hand identifying it. So if you found this helpful, share it with family or friends. If you want a list of the questions that you asked, the list that I went through, send me an email and I'll send that out to you, or maybe I'll even just put it in the comment box below. And ask people questions. If you weren't controlling, what would you be doing today? If you weren't controlling, who would you hang out with today? If you weren't controlling, what would you want to experience today? I guarantee any of those questions should not get you into trouble with anybody, because they're fun. You can make them fun when you ask the questions. And always remember, you can love someone, you can control someone, you can love to control someone, but you can't have both. That's also a nice thing just to say to somebody and laugh and walk away. So it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It can be a boundary setting in a gentle way, and let them own their shit. You don't have to own it for them anymore. So I hope you found this helpful. By all means, share it with family or friends. If you haven't subscribed yet, I am going to be putting more videos out. And I'm going to try to do it. So I'm going to try to give a tip for all the things that I see going on in the macro. And if I see them happening in different relationships that you can use now as we get through this, because there's nothing worse than if you don't understand how you're getting broadsided because somebody is manipulating you passive aggressively and you don't understand that they're trying to break your heart to get you back under control. So if you can start to see how some of these games get played, you don't have to fall for it. Then you don't have to fall so hard, and then you don't have to go so much further to get up. You start staying up and start growing without having to go back into setbacks, if that makes any sense. So reach out if you have any questions, sandy@endinggloballoneliness.com, or just put your questions in the comment box. And let's do this, because so many neat things are happening right now. And much information is coming out that there was a green room used for the inauguration, that all those fences were up so that nobody could see that it was filmed. People are showing us that there's a film set for the Oval Office, and they're showing the green room behind it. It's our job not to get manipulated. It's our job not to be controlled. It's our job not to be abused. It's their responsibility not to do those things, but it's going to require us matching their energy as they try to bowl us over. We match and stand up on our own. So anyways, I hope you have a great day. And what would you do if you were in control? I didn't have to control everything. What would you do? What kind of fun would you come up with? So just ask yourself the questions and see where it goes. Okay. Take good care, everybody. Bye-bye.